Ladies and gents, welcome to TFI. This video is going to go on for quite a while. I'm going to give it a bit of an introduction as well, just for context. If you don't like long videos, you don't have to watch it. You can skip through if you want, but I do need to waffle on at the start for context. This is off the back of the video I've just released this morning called I Think I'd Get Fired If I Bought This for $6,200. Depending on when you're watching this video, you might not have any idea what I'm on about, and you might not have seen this video here. But I suspect, I could be wrong, but I think this video is going to blow up, and it could go either way. It could get overwhelming support for people saying that this is actually pretty disgusting, or it could receive a lot of, hate. I could get a lot of grief off of this. I don't know yet, but I stand by everything that I said in it. So if you haven't seen this video, because you might be watching this video, I don't know, a year down the line, something like that, I found this boutique system builder called Boxx.com, and without going on too much about it, you can watch this video and see what it's all about. I spec'd a system on their website, and the idea behind Boxx is actually pretty good. They design and build workstations specifically for 3D CAD professionals, for graphic designers, for content creators. And they say that they tailor their systems for that industry. They know your industry. They can accelerate your workflows with their systems, which isn't, in my opinion, utter nonsense, because they're just shipping boxes with off-the-shelf parts. Their systems aren't infused with the blood and DNA of engineers with 20 years experience. It's an Intel part, it's an Nvidia part, it's a Samsung part. It's the sum of its parts. It performs according to what's in the box. Their 20 years experience doesn't manifest into anything once the PC's left the door. Anyway, the idea of it's good, though. The idea of it's good. It's good to buy a system from somebody that knows your business. That's a good thing. However, when I went and built a system on their website, it was absolutely disgustingly overpriced. I mean, horrifyingly overpriced. Indefensibly expensive. So I built one of their Apex workstations, and I use Workstation lightly. It's essentially a gaming PC. It's had an i7 in there, GTX 1080. It's got 64 gig of RAM, which is a lot of RAM. I'm not going to waffle on too much about it, but $6,200 for an i7 system with a 1080, 64 gig of RAM in. It's disgusting, absolutely horrifyingly expensive. So the argument's going to be, well, you're paying for their support, you're paying for their after-sales service, which, might I add, is completely compulsory. It's not optional. It's just, that is the system. There's going to be businesses buying these systems who are thinking they're receiving an asset worth $6,200. They're probably insuring this for $6,200. It's not worth that. If you've got PC Part Picker, it's actually worth $2,000. And that's with each of these retailers putting their own markup on each one of these parts. So it's not. It wasn't great. It wasn't great, and I was quite worried that these systems being sold into my area. I work within manufacturing, within oil and gas, within engineering, within the Autodesk Inventor space. It's worrying that these guys are selling systems to people that are within my audience. So it's kind of my business, but it's kind of not. But I just wanted to put the message out there and make people aware. So that's what this video was all about. So what I want to do in this video is show you what I do to buy a workstation, because this is not a workstation, right? i7, non-ECC RAM, GeForce card. It's not a workstation. That's what a high-end, rich gamer would buy, or a VR PC, something like that. It's not a workstation. So I'm going to take you through my thought process for buying a workstation, and the kind of price point that I think is acceptable to go in at for an Autodesk Inventor-based workstation, which could possibly apply to other CAD programs, but I'll take you through my thought process. So what I thought I'd do, and for fairness and balance, is start with Boxx. Now, their workstations are split into 4 categories, Apex 1 to 5, and I don't know what happened to Apex 3, no idea. But they're not actually... they're not. I mean, I'm sure they do perform quite well, but the variety of options isn't great. Apex 2, for example, it's a platform built off of i7s. Apex 4, I believe, is the Broadwell E i7s. So you've got the 6900K, 6950X, and I think still some of the old Haswell i7s might be in there. I'm not 100% sure. But I think 2 and 4 are based off of i7s, consumer grade CPUs. Apex 1, you do have the option of specifying Xeons, but it's a micro ATX form factor, which means that the graphics card options you've got are very limited, are very poor. Then finally, the Apex 5 is outrageously expensive. I mean, you thought $6,200 was expensive. This is extortionate. And you've only got the option of specifying dual Xeons. So you can only have an option of having 2 Xeons, not one. So it's not great. It's not great. So what I thought I'd do is go, right, well, okay, I'll pick a micro ATX. That's the best I can do. And I'll choose the components that I would pick for an Autodesk Inventor or a 3D CAD build. So I'd started with the single Xeon E5-1630V4. Now that Xeon is available to be selected if you go to Dell's website and you specify a Dell workstation. Similarly, if you go for an HP workstation, you also get that option as well, the E5-1630V4, which, in my opinion, and obviously it's a YouTube video, it's my opinion, this Xeon is the best CPU short of an i7 for 3D CAD. It's got the, as of today, highest boost clock for all the Xeon range. For everything in every Xeon that you go across, all the the E5s, the E3s, the 1 series, the 2 series Xeons, the highest boost clock is currently 4 gigahertz, and that's this chip here. And in terms of price point, it's the best value for money based on how many cores it has versus its frequency. So that's what I would pick. If the company I'm buying a workstation for isn't, don't use the word uptight, but they're not sort of trying to cheap out, I would possibly upgrade to the 1650 V4, which has the same boost clock. You'd lose 100 megahertz on the base clock, but then you gain 2 cores. It's 6 cores as opposed to 4 core. But on balance, I would say that this processor here, because of the slightly higher base clock and the fact that 4 cores for my application, which is Autodesk Inventor, 4 cores is more than enough. That would be the CPU of choice for me. And that's what I'm currently buying as of today in the offices that I work in, is the E5-1630V4. Okay, for RAM, if you're going for a Xeon, you'd be stupid to not get ECC RAM. Although the applications that we use probably just don't benefit from it. You'll not really come across many occasions where you need that ECC RAM to capture those errors. But it's not really going to do any harm, is it? You're not going to have a side window, a tempered glass case on a workstation looking inside at your RGB RAM. You're not going to have that. So it doesn't matter if it's ugly, and it's not even that much more expensive. So you'd always get ECC RAM in a workstation. 32 gig is more than enough for a 3D CAD workstation. You can go, if money's no object and you don't have a budget, go for 64. Go for more. The more the better. Doesn't make your system any faster. Doesn't make it any slower. But if you can afford it, put more in. But I'd say in a workstation today, where applications are becoming more powerful, workloads are becoming heavier, 32 gig of RAM is a good place to be at for a workstation. So that's what I always pick these days. Right, the Boxx system, because unfortunately it is micro ATX, the only graphics card options available on this site are the small form factor WX4100 Radeon Pro, which is a great card. It's a great card, but it's got 4 gig of RAM, and it's not as powerful as the full-size graphics cards that you can get, including others in the Radeon Pro WX range. And then in terms of quadros, we've only got the K1200, which is old hat at this point. That's Kepler architecture. It's 2 generations old. I've no idea why that's still here. And then the K620, which is god-awful. Do not choose a K620 quadro card in a 3D CAD build. 2 gig of video RAM is just not enough these days for a 3D CAD system. All right, then we've got the hard disk. Hard disk's a hard disk. Obviously, avoid a mechanical drive, but anything beyond a SATA 3 solid state drive, and you're not really going to see the gains. But as always, if you've got the budget, go for the M.2 PCI Express NVMe solid state drives. Look towards the Intel 600p. Look towards the Samsung 960 Pro. However, if you're going for a pre-built system, you're not going to get the option. They're just going to sell you whatever they've got in stock or whatever they're currently putting in the builds. But the 600p is a good option. That's good and cheap. Samsung 960 Pro is good. There's also the SM961, which is the kind of OEM version of the 960 Pro. That's a solid M.2 NVMe drive. But I'm putting in terabyte solid state drives. And then if there's room in the budget, put in a secondary mechanical disk as a sort of data drive. Or you can drop it down to a 512 gigabyte SSD for a boot drive and put in a secondary terabyte mechanical drive. It's up to you. But that's kind of what I'm going in at. So for Boxx, unfortunately, Boxx, you've priced yourself out of the market, I'm afraid. $5,300 for a micro ATX build with a small form factor graphics card in is grotesque, I'm afraid. There is no justification in buying this system here. I cannot recommend anybody, personally, in my opinion, buys this system. So I'm going to hop on over to Dell, and I'm going to take you through some of the options that Dell has. In my opinion, I have no affiliation with Dell at all. I'm not sponsored by Dell. I've never spoken to anybody from Dell about recommendations, about them saying you should say this and that. Never, ever, ever have I spoken to Dell in that regard through my YouTube channel. But in my professional daily activities, I always buy from Dell. Why? Frankly, their workstations are solid. They're absolutely solid. They use top-notch components in their systems, and their website configurator is amazing. This configurator for putting together a workstation is second to none. It could be better. It could be better. But it's better than Boxx and it's better than HP. So for Dell, their workstations are split into 3 categories. So these are the options you've got when you go to Dell. The 3000 series, avoid it. Unless you're starting up a business and you've got very, very limited funds, avoid the 3000 series. Unless you've got limited funds and you're using AutoCAD. If you're using 3D CAD, do not go at 3000 series. The options for components in this level is pretty limited. So this point here, the 5000 series, is where I go in at. That's what I buy for every single client that I work for, is the 5000 series. The 7000 series, you've got the same, you can put the same components in the 5000 series as you can in here, within reason. But the 7000 series, you can see the chassis is wider. It's got more support for multiple GPUs, just like some of the Boxx systems do. But it also comes with a dual Xeon socket board. So these are mainly for like render farms, for render workstations, graphic designers, people doing content creation that need multiple CPUs, need dual Xeons. For Autodesk Inventor, for most 3D CAD programs, you don't need dual Xeons and you don't need multiple graphics cards. You can get away with putting in more hardware than your application can use in a 5000 series. So these are the options we've got for the 5000 series. So Dell, well, I've pre-picked the system that I would buy. The options that I've got selected right now is what I would buy for an Autodesk Inventor workstation. But Dell give you a variety of Xeons to pick, because you might not be buying a workstation for 3D CAD. You might be buying it for an accounting PC or a render farm or who knows what. So there's a variety of Xeons. But for most 3D CAD applications, especially Autodesk applications, you want to go for a Xeon that's got the highest clock speed. And as I said earlier, the 1630 V4 has the highest boost clock of all the Xeons, mixed with the highest base clock. So it's got a base clock of 3.7 and a boost clock of 4. It's just unfortunate that it's just a 4-core, quad-core Xeon with 8 threads. There are additional options where you're going to compromise slightly. So like I said before, we've also got the option of the 1650 V4. This has 2 more cores, so it's got 4 more threads. You lose 100 megahertz on the base clock, but it's got the same turbo clock. So this one here, it's also got 15 meg of cache as opposed to 10 meg of cache. It is a better CPU, but you pay an extra $200 for that one there. If budget's not an option, if budget's not a problem, I should say, I would select the 1650 V4. But for as a minimum, I would go for the 1630 V4. But both of these here are absolutely solid choices for Xeons. Everything else, not really suitable for Autodesk Inventor or for most 3D CAD applications, because you're losing out on either base clock or turbo clocks. It's not, the other ones aren't great. Like for example, this one here, great 12 cores. Yeah, base clock at 2.2 gigahertz. Inventor and 3D CAD will run like a dog on 2.2 gigahertz, and I know for a fact it does because I've got one here. And then everything else is compromised: 2.6, 2.6, 2.3, 18 cores. Sounds like a beast. Guess what? Your 3D CAD program can't use 18 cores. Might do in little tiny short bursts, but I guarantee you that the higher base clock and turbo clock will beat the multi-threaded workflows of these higher end Xeons any day of the week. So for 3D CAD, you want to be going for the 1630 V4, the 1650 V4. All right, scrolling down, the operating system, now that depends on what company you work at. You might be, your hand might be tied there. For video cards, okay. For Autodesk Inventor, I've proven in a video I did about a week ago that the video card you put in your workstation doesn't matter. You get no performance gain regardless of which, you could go for the cheapest chips, NVS 510 Quadro here. This is awful card. Goddamn awful card. It shouldn't even be in the list. But Autodesk Inventor will run the same visually, whether you've got this card here or whether you spend $3,300 on an M6000. Inventor will run the same. However, you've got to think beyond that. You've got to think, can I afford a good Quadro card? What else might I be doing throughout the day? What else might my company be doing? I might get promoted and this PC might go to somebody who needs to do different type of work to what I'm doing. So you buy the graphics card that's best within your means, within your budget. Don't cheap out, but also don't just go buying the best one that you can choose just because you think, well, if it's the best one I can choose, it's going to perform the best. My workstation's going to be the best. Because I guarantee you, and I've proven it, that you could stick a Quadro M6000 and M5000, you could stick a P6000 in your workstation, and Autodesk Inventor and probably most other 3D CAD applications won't actually get an accelerated gain from that graphics card over something like an M4000. So the card that I always choose at the moment, it's going to be replaced by the P4000, but at the moment I'm picking the M4000. This M4000 is based off the GP204 NVIDIA chip, which is shared with the GTX 970. It's a solid card. It's got 8 gig of video RAM on the PCB board, which is more than enough. That is adequate. That'll suit pretty much everybody's workflows. 8 gig of video RAM, and it's got 4 display ports on the front of the card, which is good connectivity. You can run multiple monitors out of it, and it's just solid. No bottlenecks with that card whatsoever. It is a solid, good card, and it's reasonably priced as well. Reasonably priced for a Quadro card. A lot more expensive than the equivalent GeForce card, but it's reasonably priced. Okay, scrolling down the list, the chassis options for Dell. I mostly select the kind of mid-tier chassis. So you can go for a 425 watt power supply, 685 or 825. 825 is overkill. You're not going to use 825 watts in this workstation, so I'd go for 685. I'd go for the mid one, but it's $100 for the extra one. If you can afford $100, well, go for it. You might end up sticking 2 graphics cards, 4 graphics cards in your system later on down the line. Who knows? Who knows? But if you do pick an option which is too weak for this configuration, fortunately Dell's configurator does pipe up and says, "Oh, you need to pick the next chassis with a more powerful PSU in." So I'll go for that one. All right, RAM. Right, RAM. At an absolute minimum, 16 gig. If the workstation you're picking is giving you the option of 8 gig, do not even think about it unless you're planning on buying RAM separately from a shop and then putting it in the workstation yourself. Do not go for 8 gig of RAM. For a 3D CAD workstation at this point, as I said when I was talking about the Boxx build, 32 gig of RAM is a minimum. And if it's giving you the option of putting in 8 sticks, like for example 8x4 or 4x8, that implies that there is 8 slots on this motherboard. So go for the 4x8 as opposed to the 8x4. Purely, whichever channel your RAM's running in or your CPU's supporting, doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. You're not going to see any benefits real time when you're doing your work. So go for the option of allowing yourself to have free RAM slots. If there's 8 slots on the board, put in 4 sticks, and that gives you the option of putting more RAM in later on down the line. So 32 gig of RAM is a solid number of RAM. That's a solid quantity of RAM for a 3D CAD workstation. And then finally, the solid state drive. I've talked about this at the start. You want to go for an NVMe drive if you can. If you can afford it, get a PCI Express NVMe drive. If that's a little bit out the budget, then go for a SATA 3 solid state drive. That will be more than enough. But look for something around 500 to a terabyte in size. In this workstation from Dell, I've put in the 1 terabyte. It's Dell call it their ultra speed drive, which basically they just get an M.2 drive, stick it on a Dell proprietary PCB board and put a fan on it, which is good of them. Actually, it's cool. It comes with a fan cooler on it, but it's normally a Samsung drive. It's normally the SM961 or it could be the PM961. They put those in the Alienware laptops. Who knows what it is, but it's going to be a solid performer. And that's pretty much all I really care about when it comes to spec'ing a workstation. You can add extra peripherals. You can put in a Thunderbolt card if you're going to use Thunderbolt-based devices. It comes with, obviously the motherboard comes with its own network card, so you don't need to specify an additional network card. But if you do want an extra gigabyte NIC card, then you can put one in. Or gigabit, not gigabyte NIC card. $3,600. $3,600 for all that. $5,300 for boxes. See what I mean? Do you see what I mean? So buying workstations is expensive, but in my opinion, this price from Dell is absolutely fair. Absolutely fair. You're buying components which are designed and tested to run 24/7. i7s are not. GeForce cards are not. They're not designed to run 24/7. Xeons are because they're server chips. Quadros are because they're professional workstation cards. So you're buying for $3,600 a solid, reliable workstation for 3D CAD. I've spec'd the exact same workstation over on the HP configurator, which I could find for the US site. Can't find it for the UK site. Sucks HP, man, what he's doing. And that comes in at $3,555. That's the 1630 V4. And we've got 32 gig of DDR4 RAM, 4x8, same as Dell. We've got the terabyte HP Z turbo drive. HP, I've bought a couple of HP workstations. This exact one here, the Z440, for one of the offices I'm in, and they're using the SM961 just like Dell in their turbo drives. Just HP, they just brand it something differently. There's no secondary drive in here. Oh, there is a terabyte mechanical secondary drive in. And then we've got I think I put the Quadro M4000 in. Quadro M4000. $3,500 for that from HP, which is solid. However, just a word of warning on HP. With the HP Z440s that we've bought, we've recently bought 80 of these for the office that I'm in. I spec'd it up, brought it in, installed. Well, we've got the IT team to install them, and we're having problems with HP. We really are having problems with HP. So not only is their website dog shit, but their workstations, although the components are great, the deliverable is pretty poor. The graphics cards, the M4000 that came in the workstation, the IT team, because I found I was absolutely horrified when I saw this, pulled the side panel off the PC to make sure that everything was as it was ordered. And HP had left the cellophane on the bottom of the graphics card. The peelable plastic at the bottom of the graphics card was still on the Quadro M4000. And that's dangerous because of the next problem. For some reason, HP have not included the stock Xeon heatsink. They've, for some reason, put an aftermarket air cooler onto the Xeon. And actually, it's not the 1650 V4 that's in here. In the systems that I've just bought, it's this one here, the 1650 V4, 6 core, turbos up to 4 gigahertz, and it gets hot. It gets balls hot. I've seen this CPU in this workstation hit 100 degrees Celsius. Mostly because the cooling in these are absolutely terrible. We've got one fan. It's not even a 120mm fan. It must be about 80mm in size. It's tiny. Mounted at the bottom. No, the CPU's somewhere up here. This fan's mounted down here. It's got an exhaust fan at the back. And terrible airflow inside the case. The third-party air cooler, it's a Cooler Master cooler. It's a good cooler, but I'm pretty sure it's not designed to run on a 6-core Xeon. So when it might even be the fan curve, because HP don't even let you change the fan curve of the CPU. So when I run ray tracing, when I run Inventor Studio, and I get that CPU working its nutsack off, it's idling at about, I'm saying idling, because ray tracing, it idles the CPU at 100%. But at max load, the CPU sits at about 90 degrees. But if you turn off ray tracing, so the CPU sort of dies down, the fan curve lowers, and then you immediately spike ray tracing again, the CPU can shoot up to 100 degrees Celsius before the fans had a chance to kick in and cool it down. Absolutely terrible. Absolutely terrible. And also, third reason why these PCs were pretty poor, I haven't worked this out yet either. These PCs were delivered with the standard Windows power plan set to balanced, which is normal, absolutely normal. Most PCs, your Windows power plan is set to balanced. However, on these systems, for some reason, it was gimping the CPUs absolutely terribly. Inventor was running at about 50% capacity. I set the Windows power plan to high performance, and all of a sudden, boom, Inventor ran like a dream. Everything's smooth, buttery smooth frames per second, components, assemblies loading in really quickly. But I had to set the power plan to high performance. I balanced, and I checked it. I checked the power plan minimum and maximum CPU states were set to 5% minimum, 100% maximum. But for some reason it balanced. It was gimping the PC's performance. Not a problem, just set it to high performance and carry on. But It was just one of those things. So the cooler that they've put in here is inadequate, or the fan curve is inadequate. The CPU's hitting 100 degrees and idling max load at about 90. And the cellophane was left on the graphics cards. I'm not impressed with HP, if I'm honest. I'm not impressed with them. Dell, however, I've bought hundreds of workstations through Dell, and I've not got a bad thing to say about them. I've not seen a single failure either. So their after-sales support's a bit shitty, but I'm not going to go there. That's a story for a different day. So that's my buying process for a workstation. It's gone on for quite some time, but in terms of US dollars, this is the price point that you'd be paying for a pretty good, solid Inventor workstation that's going to last you quite a while. In UK money, you're talking about £2,800. That's what it comes out as on the UK configurator site. But if you ring up Dell, haggle with them, barter with them a little bit, you can get that price down even further. With Boxx, however, I don't know. I don't know if there's any movement on that price, but I wouldn't even... I'd be looking to pay half of that. For that configuration, it's worth half that. And don't forget, with the likes of Dell and HP, you get support from Dell and HP, obviously. Obviously, it comes with a warranty. Obviously, it comes with business class support from the likes of Dell and HP. And these guys have been around for a lot longer than Boxx, I'm afraid. They have. Dell might not have the application experience that the likes of Boxx have, but again, I'm sorry, mate, but and most of the companies that I work for or I've worked for, they get their support from either their CAD vendor, the CAD reseller, or from someone internally. So it's not normal to rely on your PC system builder for your software support. It's a bonus, but I wouldn't pay $4,200 for it. I wouldn't pay the kind of price premium being levied onto the systems that is from Boxx for that kind of support. Okay, right, that's my process that I go through then. That's why I buy what I buy. That's the system that I do buy. Both of the offices that I currently work in, that's the system that I've been buying in. And any bottlenecks, I know, again, it sounds slightly arrogant, but I've also got quite a lot of experience in this industry and using this software. I know that if an engineer or a draftsman comes to me with a software problem or a delay or an issue, I know there is no bottlenecks in that workstation. If there's an issue with the model loading, if it's taken 10 minutes to open up a small part, I know it's not the hardware. I know it's an issue with the software or with their model. These systems are solid, absolutely solid as a rock. Highly recommend this if you're looking to buy a workstation. Just one final point, the Quadro M4000, which I am buying as of today, is very imminently to be replaced by the P4000, which I do believe is the exact same price, but it's a much better spec. It's just a generation newer than the M4000, so it's just passively improved. There'll be more CUDA cores on the chip. I think it's got more video RAM on the board. I'm not 100% sure, but I'd go for the P4000 for 3D CAD as opposed to the M4000 in the future moving forward. This video will come out. It'll go out of date pretty quickly as newer generation Xeons come live, but I might do more of these in the future as time goes on, providing that people watch these and find them useful. So I'll sign off there. Sorry to... am I sorry? I'm not sure if I'm sorry about the bashing I've given these guys, because I don't know what their intentions are with charging that level of I mean, $5,300 for that, $6,200 for an i7 and a 1080 system. I don't understand that. I don't know what their intentions are with that. The guy in his email said that Boxx have legendary support. I'm from the UK. I'm not aware of this legendary support, so I'll be interested to hear from my US audience. Is Boxx.com known as having legendary support? That was their words. Their support is legendary. Are you taught it in school? Do the village elders pass on the stories of Boxx support through over the campfire, roasting marshmallows, talking about this legendary support? Are you going to pass the tales of legendary support on to your grandkids? Are you taught it in school? I don't know. I'm taking the piss now. Right, I'm going to knock it on the head there, guys. Thanks very much for watching this. Hopefully, going through my buying process for workstations was useful to somebody. But that's what I go through when I buy a Dell workstation. I used to go for the 5000 tower Intel Xeon. Quadros, or a Radeon Pro WX. The new AMD Radeon Pro WX cards are looking pretty solid, and I might have a couple of those coming through into TFI pretty soon, so I can do some testing on them, but they're looking a lot better than the older AMD generation Pro cards, so stay tuned for those. I'll see you in the next one. Toodles.